dropping in on me here at Ask a Black Girl, the podcast. So, Rana, what is this podcast about, you ask? Actually, you didn't ask, but I'm going to tell you anyway. For many, many years, I have wanted to have an official space where people can be curious and laugh and learn and just talk about subjects that are a little bit awkward at times to discuss. So here we are, a space where it's okay to laugh and learn and discuss all of those things that we want to chat about these days that people are either too busy to discuss or, quite frankly, too uptight to talk about. So as you can see, there's literally no dress code here. I'm barefoot, but I don't want you guys to see my feet. But most importantly, I'm enjoying rest for the first time in a really long time. It's a holiday weekend here in the United States, and I'm finding it a little bit odd. I'm feeling guilty and I'm feeling a little bit unproductive. I'm very blessed to have some really cool friends and acquaintances, and was really thrilled to catch up with Kibi Anderson last week. Ironically, we were talking about the subject of rest. Now, Kibi is one of those people she's just one of those people, right? She's got an Ivy League degree, she's got an Emmy, she's got a great career, she's nice. But we talked about what she's up to these days and what she calls the power of the pause and the curiosity quotient. So I thought I'd share this conversation with you guys. Stay tuned to hear that and more. I hope you enjoy.
Hey, how are you today, Rana?
Thank you for joining me. Blessed and highly favored, but wet. It's wet.
Listen, in today's world, this is all we can, I think, ask for.
I know. And so where are you joining us from?
I am in sunny Los Angeles, Southern California right now. Yes.
You got your vitamin D in?
Lots of vitamin D. I actually just came back from a 2-week vacation, so I got a lot of vitamin D in because I'm feeling very rested, and I know we're talking a lot about that today on the show. So in a really good space, despite all the chaos.
So when I try to describe who you are to people, right? There's producer, there's president, there's strategist, there's speaker, there's author, and then Ivy League graduate. So I'm burned out just talking about all those titles. Tell me how you got to do what you were doing. And how you got to be a big subject.
Well, it's so fascinating. So I got to do all those things because I was, and I'm still a recovering overachiever and have navigated a lot of the realities of when that saboteur kicks in that tells you the only way to validate your worth is by being super productive. And I don't want to reduce my successes to this idea that I was never going to be broke, hungry, or poor again. But a lot of my early successes were really rooted in that. As I have evolved and am now really advocating a lot of my work around my Rested Rebel movement and understanding more personally what it really looks like to live a life that is sustainable. I'm even more proud of the accomplishments that I'm making around my health and showing up for my friends and being a bonus mom and navigating, divorce and mom battling breast cancer over the last year in a much more healthy way. So listen, I love all my accolades. I shout out everything that I've done, and I'm really excited about the next season of my life.
I want to double click on something you said for a minute, but first I want to say this is what I like about you. This is what your energy is when you click onto you after semi-meeting you through work. There's nothing performative about this, okay? And I love that. There's the authenticity, the saboteur thing. I love that you named it. You know how people say you should name things? If you
absolutely,
you should name it before it goes to heaven. We have names for everything now, whether it's ADHD, ODD, OPP, all that. I love it. Tell me what the saboteur is, what the cause is, and how you named it.
Yeah, well, my saboteur has a name. My saboteur is called Chase. And it's funny because I have all of my clients when I start working with them, as we're trying to get a hold of that negative voice of doubt that gets all of us. We all are rooted in some sort of early experience that has traumatized us in certain ways. And to your point, the more that you can get to know it. I say get to know the voice. This is a common exercise I have my clients do. The more you understand how it gets control over you, and then once you have that, you're able to then get control over it. I always encourage my clients to use a name that resonates. So for me, you know, I was always on the chase. Like I always was chasing the next dream, chasing the next accomplishment, chasing the next big thing. And rooted in a season where I kind of called the hair season, I felt deeply in my soul, my confidence in being able to outwork everything that was put against me. And so therefore chase made sense, because even saying that, it feels like out of breath. And in this season of my life, I call it the turtle season, where I'm really rooted in sustainable, capacity-based pacing. And a lot of my work, I always say I did it for me, which is why it's not performative. Like every single day I'm telling myself, not today, Chase. No, you're not going to get me today, Chase. Right. So that's why I say, name it. So for your listeners, absolutely.
Yeah, I was a video clip of Whitney Houston back in the day when she had the hat on saying, I'm not doing this with him today.
Not today, Chase.
Papa Show Chase, you back a while ago.
Kibi is the voice of curiosity and love and ease and rest. And Chase is the antithesis of all of that. So it's important to not call yourself the things that you are looking to remove or to diminish. And that's the reason why it's important to name it, because too many people will come to me and they'll be like, God, I'm so anxious and I'm so this. And I'm like, no, you're not. That's that voice. I said, you are probably curious and excited and loving and fun and all the things that people begin to forget about themselves.
2 questions. One, do you have the cause for Chase? Like, has he been around since you were 5, 6 years old? That sort of thing?
So we all have a voice. I say that. We all have a voice. And most of us experience the development of our voice when we experienced our first real trauma. You know, so for me, my parents divorced when I was 3. My mom and dad separated. My mother became a single mother. And as with many young people who probably grew up with limited means, the realities of not having food in the house, and I was unhoused, and, you know, just the longing for more stability. Like my mom, bless her heart, did the best she could with the tools she had. And she wasn't always the best with financial security, and she didn't always make the best choices. So I lived in a very loving, but oftentimes chaotic, experience in my life. So the only thing I could think about was, how do I create a situation where I had more control over my day-to-day existence? And so Chase is rooted in control for you, because you grow up being a people pleaser, or perhaps being a hyper avoider, or being worried that if you do something wrong, you're going to get in trouble. So all of those things are rooted in how a saboteur can show up. And so a lot of this work around saboteurs is rooted in a lot of the work that he did. So I want to give him credit. And so one of the things I recognize in my own personal journey to coming and reconciling my relationship with rest, which was very unhealthy. Chase had me all messed up in the head, was that because of my childhood, I never actually tested and experienced the joy and the benefits that could come out of pausing. Like in my mind, pausing had no power. Like, why would I ever stop? Like the way to be successful, the way to never deal with, the roots of pain and suffering and shame and all the stuff that comes along when you don't really have a lot of money. Your dad abandoned you, which was unfortunately my situation. You're like, of course I'm gonna work it. Work myself to success. But the truth is, the power has actually always been in the pause. So that's where my shifting and understanding and trying to create a pathway for me as a highly ambitious, I'm very ambitious. I love to work. Like, I'm not apologetic about that. And yet I had to figure out, but you've got to make sure that you're sustained, Kibi, in this pathway. So we got to rework our relationship to rest. So that's where a lot of my power of the pause work comes in, and really reprogramming myself. Yeah. And as I realized, the more and more I talked about this, the more and more my peers and my fellow hyperachievers were like, oh, wait, I need that too.
Because I love this. This is an issue for all people of all genders. Obviously, as women, we see it differently, right? Yes. I want to double click on something that you said that reminded me of, my own upbringing, right? My parents were the first one in their families to reach a certain level of comfort, right? Mm-hmm. But my dad always said he wasn't working to be poor. Yeah. More importantly, something that I always remember my parents saying to me And this might be not just because being African American, also being Midwestern with some kind of work ethic, was you've got to work twice as hard as the next person to achieve the same result. So that said, how do you think understanding this informs sometimes Black women?
I disagree with that. Like, I think that's a complete lie. And, I too was programmed. You got to work twice as hard to get half as far. And it's just a lie. And it is a lie rooted in, a genuine love and care for our parents because they wanted us to survive and they wanted us to be successful. So I don't begrudge the message, but as I got older and went through my own work and I began to really test the data, it just didn't prove out, right? Because I'm working harder, I'm getting farther, but I'm not happy. So those are the trade-offs. And I think, unfortunately, that generation began to overemphasize wealth being purely financial and not understanding how holistic we have to think about wealth, right? Like, health is wealth, physical sustainability is wealth, spiritual wealth, mental health is wealth, right? And I have battled depression, all of my life, not realizing it was depression until it was diagnosed probably in my late 20s. My father undiagnosed bipolar disorder, masked as drug and alcohol addiction, so there's so much in their lives that they didn't even question that was the mantra. But I guarantee you, if I ask you and if I ask a whole lot of other people, because I'm a data girl, I'm a consultant, I'm like, what does the data show? The truth is, you didn't get twice as far. Like, we're still getting let go. If you're in corporate America, you're still doing.
If you're Gen Z, if you're Gen Z, it's definitely not the case.
And so this younger generation is like, bunk that. Like, y'all got me messed up if you think I'm gonna believe that crap.
Tell me a story about what happened there.
Yeah. So, Chase had me all up in these streets working like crazy, and it's funny, in the chapter of my book, I talk about, the very first time that I had my first episode related to my illness. I had just put in probably a 15-hour day and I was on my way home and I had been stressed out trying to get a deck done for this bank that I was working at the time. And I had been limping, but it wasn't until I got to my car that I finally looked down and I realized that my ankle was so swollen I couldn't see my foot.
Oh my
and
God.
That just gives you some context as to how much I had trained my brain to suppress the body intelligence that it was telling me, and so that was the first time. And I see it and I'm like, oh, well, God, I don't have time for this. I got to come back and prepare for this presentation. So I went to the doctor. They gave me some drugs. I came back the next day limping, but I got that deck done, girl. And I definitely submitted that proposal. And that was my energy. And so fast forward, I had moved to New York to start a new life as a first-year business student at NYU Stern. Shout out to NYU. And the same thing happened. And this time it was on the other ankle. And I'll fast forward. I went to the doctor. And this time the doctor was like, you know what, Kibi, you might want to take a break. Like, it seems like you've been doing a lot. I'm hearing about your story. Maybe you want to rest. And I literally looked at that man like he was crazy. And I was like, rest? I just moved here. I got business internships and MBAs to get and all that kind of stuff. Long story short, that started what ultimately became an 8-year saga of me ignoring my body, ignoring the escalating symptoms. What started as inflammation turned into pustule blisters that ultimately turned into 45 ulcers on my body. And ulcer creation is extremely painful. Imagine like a blowtorch burning your skin from the inside out.
And knots on your arse is what happened.
Yeah, definitely. And so finally I figured out what was going on. And I was diagnosed with a rare autoimmune condition called pyoderma gangrenosum. And long story short, my body started like self-destructing. For those of you who don't know what autoimmune conditions are, basically healthy cells end up attacking themselves and your body can't tell the difference. And so I got ulcers. I had horrible fatigue, body aches, fevers, couldn't walk for almost 2 years. It was really, really bad. And I just kept ignoring it. I kept saying, give me the drugs. I kept saying all the things that would sustain me instead of doing the thing that I needed to do, which was sit still and really begin to ask myself what I was doing. And so I'll close this out. So the story I was telling you about my friend who came into the hospital that day, like I said, I'm 100 pounds, literally like very, very sick. And she had been kind of watching me over the last 8 years just suffer. And she says this to me. And then she asked me a very pivotal question. She's like, Kibi, I need to ask you, what is it? Because you're going to die. Like, I'm afraid you're going to die. And I never really had somebody say that to me. And this was like comedian friend of mine, always jokes, always. And she was like, you were going to die. And even now when I think about it, it's like, ooh,
chills.
You get chills. Yeah. So I listened to her for the first time. And then as she left, the reality of like looking around my hospital bed, and I'm just like, look at you. Like you can't even walk. Like, how are you expecting to do all the things you're going to outwork yourself to? And so she finally forced me to ask this pivotal question, which I ask everybody, which was, Kibi, why are you so afraid to rest? Why are you so afraid to rest?
I love it.
Why?
Love it.
And so that began this journey of me really beginning to, again, examine my relationship to rest and really begin to understand what was it about resting that I just didn't understand and didn't really value, and ultimately ask myself and understand like rest is an act of trust. So I tell my clients that as we're working through this stuff.
Yeah.
And so what are you not trusting? And so as I began to really understand that, that's where a lot of the freedom and the approaches came into play. Yeah. So, there's stuff to learn from both sides. And like I shared, I mean, I'm a consultant. Like I have written, my book that I wrote about this, or the chapter in the book that I wrote called Point Taken. So Point Taken is a multi-author book that I participated in. It came out last year. And it was a book of, I think there's like 10 amazing, with female business owners, entrepreneurs, like corporate executive leaders who were basically writing about the lessons on how it, what it takes to be successful. We all were able to take an angle. And so for me, because I've been doing a lot of work around my Power of the Pause movement, I've already been speaking and doing workshops. It was a really great opportunity to really codify my writing and my approach. And it was amazing. And so that came out in April of last year. It's an Amazon bestseller. So I'm really proud of it. We did a really, really great job. I'm great to be in community with so many other brilliant women. And if you haven't read it or you're not familiar with it, definitely check it out. If you go to my website, kibianderson.com, you can find ways to get access to it. And I really appreciate the way the publisher, the woman is Michelle Savage, and her company is called Sulit Press. And she's really focused on creating a space for female leaders to tell their stories in a way that is humanizing and accessible and provides the kind of underbelly that may not always be the thing that you see on social media, but it is necessary to be able to rise above it.
You used another one of my favorite keywords, and you used the term masking, right? And in the past, this is something that being a parent has helped me. I don't really understood that term. I think if you had talked to me about this, 8 years ago, I would have thought I'm in all the curation that goes on online, which can be part of the masking. But I'm speaking within the terms of people, even neurodiverse people in particular in the workplace. I am undiagnosed. I'm not going to be one of those people on the internet talking about I have autism. TBD, my insurance is mapped out. I'm going to get the thing, but I have 2 boys, one with ADHD, major executive functioning issues, gets it from his mama. And another one who is 2E, gifted intelligence, all that.
Yeah.
And so in looking at the concept of burnout, one of the first things someone taught me, and my kids are, they're half British. One of the British people I was talking to actually talked to me about the spoon theory. And of course I have my research there for that. But basically what it means is it talks about how everybody's born with a certain amount of spoons, right? And then people that are neurodiverse, ADHD and neurodiverse, quite frankly, are born with half that amount of spoons. So we burn out more. And so some of what people that are neurodiverse, particularly women, particularly Black women in the workplace, it was like, I read the stuff and it was like my career in a nutshell. Aggressive, or being dysregulated because you're paranoid about how you're being seen, or low self-esteem, or to your point, working your butt off and not seeing any results for it. What trends have you seen, not only in your research, but with your client base?
Yeah.
How many clients with ADHD in particular that I've talked to you about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're highlighting a very common trend. There was so much non-diagnosis happening, and yet people were compensating just because we had no other choice. But yeah, no, a lot of my clients, and I find that exceptionally successful people, the folks that I deal with, senior leaders, C-suite folks, have a level of giftedness to them that got them there. There's also a emotional mastery, but it's not necessarily a healthy emotional mastery. Like, one of the reasons why I find that a lot of clients who ultimately realize they have ADHD, or they think that they do, that I work with, come to me is because the reason why they've gotten to where they are is because there isn't as much emotional intelligence, whether it's because it's been suppressed or you, like you said, you don't have as many spoons, right? So you may not realize that there's the spectrum of an emotion wheel that you need to be navigating in order to get to the other side. Now, the upside of that is you can push through anything. Like, because your brain is so brilliant. And like you can tell yourself,
hyper focused. Yeah,
you can get through anything, right? I begin to kind of recognize, just given my work, like, oh, like this is a gift. Now, the flip side of that, and this is where it can become really challenging, is that you need all those emotions to say, you know what, body not feeling good means you need to slow down, right? And so that's where the burnout comes into play. The other side of the coin is because you don't have as many kind of spoons, and you're not, if people don't know it, they don't know to give you the tools, right? So that's why eventually when they get so successful, but they burn out, they're like, I thought I know that. And I said, no, you weren't taught this. Like nobody has taught leaders how to really communicate effectively, right? Like how to do it with emotional intelligence, how to do it in a way that allows you to be vulnerable, especially as Black leaders, Black women especially. You know, this idea of being vulnerable in corporate America, people look at me straight crazy when I tell them to talk about their emotions. And I'm like, I hear you. And yet, how is your current way working out for you?
Yeah, like, I mean, I would say the hyper focus combined with the work ethic and this is what, 15 years ago, having spilled, because, you know, I'm a yogi and you think I would understand this, the mind body connection. You know, I burned myself while I was making my morning tea, my morning Ayurvedic hot water and lemon. Burned myself here. I'm fine. Put on leather pants because, of course, I got to look cute. Limped to work. Didn't realize how bad it was till the end of the day when I couldn't stand up. People were like, you should probably go to the hospital. And man, that my acupuncturist appreciates it because I've gone to acupuncture for the past 15 years because of the scar tissue, right? And it's all those things combined. So I think you got something there as people start to understand inclusiveness, which I hope isn't a bad word. I mean, we listen. I will say that we have names for everything now, right? Like, it is a little bit silly that it's like, I've got ODD combined with this and this and OPP. I get we have language for things. Are you seeing or feeling pushback? Like, is this woke talk is what I'm asking you? Even though woke used to be a fun word. But
you know, so one of the things that I'm working on now is a kind of evolution of what quote unquote diversity, equity, and inclusion I think has been labeled. So when you talk about, is this woke work? No, and yet I do believe that this work needs a new name, right? Like the whole backlash. I'm a communications expert. I'm all about messaging and storytelling.
Yeah.
One of the theories that is mine, like the frameworks that I am working on that is proprietary, is something called curiosity quotient, and it is rooted in a belief and a hypothesis that I'm consistently testing, and I'm getting really great data. So I feel strong about the efficacy of this work. Is that the future of DEI is moving towards how do we increase curiosity in leaders, and within that, a higher curiosity quotient. And I'm doing like research. I can give people scores. I can give organizations scores. Like, that's really the exciting work I'm focusing on. The more you address the core issues that DEI it has been put in place to address. And the benefit of it is that everybody likes to be called curious, right? Like, everybody likes to be considered the most curious leader. And so it's a really accessible way to get people to ultimately take action in a way that creates respect for difference, humanity, whether that is, like you say, neurodiversity, race, sex, you know, all that kind of stuff. Genuinely bring humanity back to kind of the business. And that's a big part of my work as a coach. Like, I want to bring humanity back to business, because the lack of curiosity and the alternative, i.e. leading with assumptions, is where you create which is lack of belonging for people that have different experiences.
You have spoken, you have scratched an itch, and you know where I am. I'm in the leafy Northeast, which is, people are nice, but elitist. You know, I'm from flyover country, but they're elitist. They don't realize it. And as someone who's probably neurodiverse herself, but the mother of two neurodiverse boys, you talked about curiosity. And when I sit there and talk to the two moms I can really have a conversation about with this, a lot of times it's like, I just wish people were more curious. It's not that people aren't nice or trying to be mean or whatever, but they're not curious about other people. They're not curious about, hey, this kid might not play lacrosse, but wow, he seems to know a lot about Pokemon just like I do, et cetera, et cetera. We should spend some time together and be curious about each other. But people, they're not trying always to be cliquey per se or not kind, but kids aren't learning beyond that. We can go on and on about the screens and being physically in person. They're not learning to be curious about other people.
Yeah, right? Definitely.
I get yelled at all the time by my husbands and my sons because, I'll be lagging, even though I claim I don't want to go places half the time. I'm asking people about themselves. I'm curious. Yeah. It's like, make curiosity great again.
With the increasing rise of technology, AI, the consistency around uncertainty, I have a lot of my clients who'll be like, when is it going to end? And I'm like, it's not. It's only going to get worse. The ultimate survival skill for anybody who's trying to be successful in business, but even in life, is the ability to communicate effectively. Like, that is the most human thing. Like, the only way we're going to beat AI is to become more human. Like, that's the only thing. And communication is the most human thing that we have. It's rooted in our emotional intelligence. It's rooted in our ability to actually have co-created experiences from another person who has their own sense of rooted intelligence. So that's actually the superpower. The reality is that we all move typically with assumptions because it's rooted in survival. Like, we all have these saboteurs. They're always trying to keep us safe, even though the things that we are up against are not real. And so that's the challenge. Fear drives assumptions. And because everybody's worried, everybody's concerned about their own individualness, it creates the divisiveness that we're in, because it's hard to connect with somebody if you assume you know everything. And to your point, the worst, like, people always talk about, like, the worst thing that you can do when it comes to kind of the opposite of being kind is to be mean. I actually think it's indifference. Like, that's what really, like, rubs people, right? If you just show so you're like, yeah, you're kind, but, like, you don't even care. That is a common experience.
Right. And it's performative. It brings it full circle.
Exactly.
Performative nature.
Exactly.
Sometimes what you see. And so I want to bring it back full circle to burnout, right? Because that's community. I'm sure you have the research. People aren't as burned out when they have community, but what are some of the other things you found that are an antidote for community? You talked about spaces, you talked about rest as resistance. Take me through some of your life editor, if you will. And for those that don't know, Life Editor that's your brand, right?
That's my company. Yeah.
Tell me what some of those bullet points are.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I want to reinforce what you just shared. And ironically, I just came back from my 25th reunion from college. I'm a Harvard graduate, and a dear friend of mine, a classmate, and I co-hosted a panel with a guy named Robert Waldinger, who runs the Happiness Institute. It's like the longest running.
Yes.
And to your point, this is 85 years, primarily white men, because that's all that was back there. But the point is, it's applicable to today. Deep relationships is the number one driver of happiness. And so I just want to reiterate that, like, for those of you who are out here now, that is the truth. It's rooted in data. It's rooted in science. If you want to increase your happiness, it's not more money. It's not more things. Like, it's rooted in what is the quality of your relationships. And it's not even about quantity. You could have one really amazing relationship, and the data shows that you will over time have much more happiness in your life. So I just want to say that, because that is key. And when you talk about burnout, there's several principles that I get into in my Rested Rebel work and my Power of the Pause framework. And it's really rooted in, how do you move with the rest first centered mindset? Like, that was a shift that I had to do. And the way you do that is a couple of things. And I'm going to highlight a few of them just because I know we only have so much time. But one of them is this shift from what I describe as me care to we care. So when you talk about this idea of community, one of the things that I hate in terms of our society is this overemphasis on self-care. because I think self-care is bullcrap. I think we've been bamboozled. I do not think self-care is the goal, just like I don't think balance is the goal. And that's a whole nother conversation.
These days anyway. Everything is self-care.
Exactly. And the reality is, listen, I'm all for going to the spa, going to do vacation. The challenge is, and again, this is about how do you give yourself permission to lead with the rest first centered mindset.
That's right.
Again, I'm the queen of, I'm gonna work myself to death. So I had to figure out, how do I get me closer? And when I think about self-care, the idea is I'm focusing on me, and that means I'm not helping my mom who's sick. I'm not helping my kids who need my help. And it inherently drives guilt. And who wants to be guilty all the time? So the likelihood of me doing that was just not going to happen. And most of my clients, when I put it that way, they're like, yeah, that's why I don't want to do, but when we start shifting the mindset from rest is about we care, your resting actually now becomes a love letter to your community. It's a love letter to your kids. Like, we can rest in community. That was another big myth I had to dispel. I was like, you know what? I've gone on solo retreats and meditation bunkers and everything, and I come back and I do not feel rested.
So where are those communities? Where do we go to rest for community?
Well, I mean, wherever you enjoy. Like for me, I love roller skating. So like I'll go to the roller skating rink and just rest and be around that. And that for me is very restful. I love sailing. So for me, going out with some friends on a boat is very restful. And I do want to share with this. I redefine rest as doing anything that gives you joy. And there's books out there, like there's a 7 sacred rests, and there's all kinds of stuff scientifically around, like rest is more than sleeping, rest is more than vacationing. Like there are different types of rest. And for me, I'm all about simplicity and systems. So for me, I was like, all right, that's cool. But like, if I just define rest as doing anything that gives me joy, it feels much easier to access. It's easier to remember. And therefore, I'm more likely to do it. So in many instances, I encourage your listeners and my clients as well. What are the things that you're doing in your life that give you joy? And how many of things are in community, and you may not actually be giving yourself credit for resting. And if you can begin to pinpoint that, then you can become more intentional around what I also say for people is rest has to be a discipline. Right. It has to be a lifestyle. Like you have to schedule it in. Otherwise, you will do what I used to do most of my life, where you're burning yourself out to the midnight hour trying to get to that vacation maybe, or that week off. And then you're so exhausted when you get to the vacation. Don't take some kids. You ain't getting no rest. And so again, how do you make it more consistent? So for me, like every quarter, I set aside a week to do very intentional rest-filled things. Like when my ex-husband and I were together, like the first Friday of every month was like a 24-hour, just he and I detox, no phones, no kids. And it was powerful. And for those people who might be like, well, Kibi, you may have the money to do that, but I can't do that. Here's my challenge for you. Again, what gives you joy? First step. That stuff usually doesn't cost anything. And so find that thing that gives you joy. And even if it's just 30 minutes once a day for 7 days, try it out. And I guarantee you will see results. You will see a difference when you intentionally say, I'm going to give myself 30 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it is, but do it consistently over time, and you will see a shift. So those are a couple of things that I would say for people who are trying to figure out how to rest in community and the importance of community, ways to get you a little bit closer.
What else are you working on right now that we should be aware of?
Well, like I shared, my curiosity quotient is something I'm really, really excited about. I'm working on a book around it, and really beginning to kind of codify a lot of my teachings and the frameworks that I use with my clients every day. So that's got me excited. I am actually building out and like an Ask Kibi chatbot. A lot of my clients are like, I need you, and they'll send me text messages like, how do I have this conversation? Because I have a whole methodology around how to help people communicate like a pro. And I work with a lot of leaders. So oftentimes they'll hit me up and I'm like, you know what? I got to scale me. So I'm leaning into technology, just like all of those folks. So I'm working on a beta of that, and I'm going to be rolling that out to some clients. And then vision down the road will be to actually have it be more accessible to the general public. But at this point, I am actively looking for corporate clients, senior leaders who are really struggling with things you highlighted, burnout, like misalignment. You're finding yourself having the same conversation over and over again and not seeing anything change. You are dealing with managing capacity, right? Like my focus areas are how do I help you move and lead with greater communication, clarity, confidence to ensure that your capacity is there to actually lead with more curiosity. Because like I said, curiosity that will allow you to navigate the extreme levels of uncertainty that we're in right now. And I'm on a mission to make sure that my leaders are prepared, because I believe that, coaches are meant to help kind of change the world, because we are helping to create mindset shifts at pivotal times for the world's leaders. And I, whether that is supporting a celebrity client, because I do have, I have a background in media and entertainment, find their voice as they're trying to move with a new show, a new podcast platform, a CEO trying to figure out, how do I motivate my team? How do I make sure that if I have to make tough decisions, I do it from a place of honor and respect. So my people, while they may not feel good about it, don't lose their sense of dignity. And again, how do you really make sure that you're bringing your most human self to work every day? I offer what's called a curious leadership scan, which is a diagnostic tool to really begin to assess what is the level of curiosity in your culture. A lot of people really think they're being curious and they're not. And so when they work with me, they begin to recognize, wow, like how much of my typical behavior that I thought was okay is actually destroying my ability to connect and build trust and to move forward. You need capacity to be curious. If you're exhausted, if you're scared, if you ain't got time to listen to nobody because you're just in reaction mode.
That's right, brain space. I talk about that a lot. Yes.
You're not going to be curious, which is why a lot of folks who are neurodivergent can struggle, because you're already at a limited capacity given the lesser spoon. So the idea that in leadership, you got to figure out how to, that takes work. It takes tools. I love you because you honor and you own it, and you're not afraid. I don't sense shame in it, right? Like obviously it's a constant dynamic and you're working at it, but my hope and my work and my intention is around helping brilliant people like you move through these exchanges that might initially trigger a little bit of discomfort with more confidence, clarity, more curiosity, so that you even talk to yourself in a way that is loving, right? Like there's 3 levels of communication. The one you're having with yourself, with your team, and with your stakeholders. And the number one conversation that people who have been doing things amazingly for a long time forget is the one with themselves.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I feel so blessed that we've been able to.
Thank you. I'm glad we got it together. Listen, I'm so excited.
Yeah. And we'll see you next time. You have to come back.
Yes, absolutely.
Stay with me, oh, let's just breathe.
I was traveling in the UK last weekend and did one of my favorite things, which is watching cheesy British morning television. On ITV's Good Morning Britain, there was a really awesome story about an immigrant named Bruno. Bruno is originally from Portugal, but currently works as an electrician in the Hampshire area. On his way to work a few weeks ago, he stumbled across a school bus literally crashing into the river. Bruno immediately took action, saved 19 high school students from this bus, and collaborated with the neighbors around them to get them safe to shelter, dried off the works. You know, in a world in which we love to talk about how divided we are, I thought that was such an amazing story of humans loving on humans. And he even felt bad about being late for his appointment. Thanks for joining us today. Feel free to follow us on Instagram. Email me at Rana@askablackgirlthepodcast.com. And most importantly, have a great day.